Hey guys, and we're back, and today we are going to be mixing down the project, something that a lot of people find difficult, and I would say it is one of the more difficult aspects of producing, especially when you're starting off. There's a lot to learn, and there's certain things you can't really skip, like training your ears to really figure out what sounds good to you, and it takes a lot of lessons, a lot of time doing it, and then a lot of mistakes and sending songs that sound awful. I've done that a few times. Even so much like I've sent tracks to DJs and they've played it out at a club, and I've been in the club and it sounded really quiet. And I know that's like a mastering issue as well, but when you mix and master your own track, it's kind of more of a mix issue because you're not really going to change it in the master because you think it sounds all right, but in reality, it probably doesn't. So the main things we're going to cover today, because it is a mix-in session and we're mixing techno, is we need to get it loud. We need to get a DJ loud at the cost of dynamics, yes, but we try and save as what we can, and we don't want to squash the mix too much. And we really want to do as best job as possible to try and get it sounding club ready, massive, and just in your face, you know? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save it as a new, Mixdown. I've also made a few more edits just off camera just before I started because I showed my wife. She didn't like the breakdown, and neither did I after listening to it. So we got rid of a lot of the vocals and left it with a bit more bare, a bit more mysterious, which is good because less is more, especially in techno. And also, we've got a guest with us today. We've got a golden retriever in the studio. We are dog sitting him, and he's now looking where my wife is because she's the one who's meant to feed him, and she's gone for a walk. So, right then, if we crack on. Well, first, I'll also we're going to cover some things today, so like clipping is a great tool that I use quite often, and there'll be some more like theory-based things in with mixing because it is like quite theory based in if you're trying to get things as loud as possible. Obviously things sound good, it sounds good, but in reality, like there's theory behind it, you know, why you can do certain things and why you can't do other things. So pay attention. No, there'll be, you know, a lot of information. Right, so first things first, put my headphones on. Right, what we're going to do first is we're going to try and maximize the kick by basically making it as loud as possible without really changing the sound profile of the kick. Also, you kind of want a few, you're going to want a few references. Now, I would set these references to exit out in your Ableton thing just so that they don't go on your mastering bus, because if you add anything on your mastering bus in your Mixdown, then obviously it'll affect them too. So just bear in mind, basically, always check back. So if we just take the busiest section of our track, or the golden section, really.
Fire. Our first true piece of technology. Fire. Fire.
And we're going to want to listen to, let's say, this Pleasurecraft song, which, you know, he's an amazing producer, Non-Human Animal. Just check this out. Now, you notice there's a volume difference in the tracks. Now, your brain's going to perceive Pleasurecraft's track as better quality, regardless of really what's going on. So what you can do, because louder is better, psychoacoustically it is, at least if something is louder, as long as it doesn't hurt your ears, it sounds better. More crisp, more detailed, more everything. So a tip you can do is you're going to want this plugin. It's free. I bought the pro version. I wouldn't bother. I don't really get much out of it. If you're going to be doing broadcasting stuff and stuff for like TV and stuff, well worth it, because you have all these little like, you know, well, you don't really need them. But in reality, we're aiming for like, not numbers really. You want to, obviously don't want to push it too much, but I try to aim around 5 LUFS in the busy part of the track. So what you want to do is you want to load up the song you're going for. So we're going to go for Pleasurecraft song. Sorry. Mess this up. You should set this to your group and set the group to exit out, because that means you can do what we're about to do. So let's go. As you see, Pleasurecraft songs at minus 5.4 LUFS. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our song, see what our song is at.
First true piece of technology. Our first true piece of technology. Our first true piece of technology.
Crazy, isn't it? We're louder, but it sounds quieter. Mental. There's a bit of psychoacoustic. Certain things go on when you're mixing, and like certain noises. So basically our kick is way too loud most likely, and it's just overpowering the mix. We're also clipping, which, you know, is not ideal. So we'll take it down until we're not clipping.
First true piece of technology. Our first true piece of technology. Our first true piece of technology. Our first true piece of technology.
So we'll go for 8.6, let's say 8.5 actually. Let's just go for 8.5. If we go back to Pleasurecraft song, and he's 5.5 basically. What's the difference? 3. So if we go minus 3.2, right? The more accurate your maths, the better. Basically, we're trying to match them up so they'll be both the same LUFS, right?
True piece of technology. Piece of technology.
See, our track sounds quieter. Our kick is probably louder, but the problem is our kick isn't as punchy. He's got a very clean kick here. You can really hear it. Our kick, because it's just a different type of kick, it's going to sound more muddy. You're not going to get that clean tone. Sorry, let me just... You're not going to get that clean tone from it. And then, because you're not going to get a clean tone, there's no point chasing the fact that it sounds clear. But obviously it's going to be a bit louder. Right, so we've done Pleasurecraft song. Let's go for this song now, which is Cisco Electro Fanatic and T78 So Loud. Really good song. So this track's a bit quieter, but in fact, this is the wrong section. We need a section where it has got percussion. There we go. Amazing. It's a great song. Again, the same thing. It's probably minus 3 again.
Technology. Our first true piece of technology.
And the LUFS thing isn't like, it's not 100% like accurate. It's just a good baseline for what we're kind of looking for. So let's keep going. Oh, hang on. It's probably something to do with it. Sorry, we had the volume down lower here. If you put that at the end, actually, it'll probably give us a better idea.
Our first true piece of technology. Our first true piece of technology. Our first true piece of technology. Our first true piece of technology.
Sorry, we'll just adjust these again. And then the final track, we got this other techno song, Shadam Destructor. This is closer to our track, right? But it does have a high-end synth, so certain things are going to be a bit off again, but, you know. Right, anyway, now we've got that what we're going to do is we're going to just pop back and forth. But this is my favorite Mixdown because this is the oldest track. This is just a bit darker. Now, you know, I actually prefer so loud. So what we're going to do is first, we're just going to keep these in mind. So we're going to get started now properly. Right, so the idea is we're going to get our kick and we're going to make it as thick as possible. So we're going to find a single sample of it because we don't really need more with our kick. And then we're going to pounding. Oh, I think we've already done this. Right, so I'll explain. The idea is we're going to try and make our kick as loud as possible without changing the sound so that it doesn't really need any limiting once it gets to the final mastering limiter. It is just, there it is, you know, as max as we can. And then we level match everything into that so that the limiters are kind of more focusing on limiting the things into the kick rather than limiting the kick. And we end up going in with a quieter kick that gets then, by comparison, made louder by the rest of the track being limited into the kick. I'm going to butcher some explanations today. I'm not used to explaining it, so you know, it's a learning process. So here's our kick, and we're just going to basically, I'm going to turn it up loud in my headphones because sometimes you need to be loud to hear any like distortion that's going on, you know. That was loud. All right. I'm using this VST called Standard Clip. Amazing. It's quite cheap, I think, by SIR Audio. They don't have many tools on offer. I've messaged them on Instagram to see if they're going to make anything more, but they haven't. But the idea is it arrives on that, and it's just a clipper with like an adjustable, you know, settings. But Soft Clip Pro has some unique properties with it where it kind of like any value that goes above that is applied as a ratio where it kind of, I can't remember what it was, but basically like if 6 dB goes up above it at 25, then it's the next 3 dB that gets soft. You'll have to, it's on their website. I remember what it was in my head, but basically it sounds better. It sounds more transparent by doing it this way, right? So what we're going to do is but obviously I've turned up, the volume now is way louder, so we're going to use lean again. We're going to keep level matching it because when you make things louder, it sounds better, so you'll be making poor mixing choices, you know, so we're talking 7.4 and then I can hear that's making a significant change though to the sound. You're losing a bit of the low end from that. I'm going to pull in another meter called Oscilloscope, which I find is a little bit better for this type of thing, for working on kicks. It's just a bit easier to read. Yeah, you can see we've squared off quite a bit there, so okay, I'm going to leave it at 17%, where 17% was where it was before. I'm happy with that. But we could probably squeeze a few more, because if you notice, basically, when you're looking at this, the main body is kind of there. And there's still this much, you know, what's that? -1 to minus... Fucking hell, yeah. So we've got a whole dB that we could be like shaving off really to get kind of more of a, yeah. So let's just try and like push it a little bit more, you know. Just get a little bit tighter. Come on. Let's just see what it would take. Okay. That sounds all right. Let's keep that. Right. So we've done that with the kick now. I don't really, because I like the sound of the kick, I'm not really going to go through these and clean these up, but that's it. Right, so what you do now is, here comes the longer part. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to print the kick. We've got so many different patterns, that's the only issue. Right, so what you're going to do is print the kick, which comes from kick group. And I'm just going to mute it while this works out. Sorry, there we go. Cool. Right, let's go. So the idea is with this is that while we're printing the kick, we can clear up some things and then basically have a better kick and a cleaner kick that gets duplicated throughout the rest of the track. You can do this more earlier on, but if we stop here, kind of see what I mean. That's pretty spot on. I think I cleaned the kick beforehand. Yeah, I have. Yeah, so basically, it's about making things reset on the zero. So on the zero line, as you can see, things have. I know these are a bit off, but you can see it's pretty much on the zero. The zero line's obviously where the mouse is. It's just a tiny bit off, but I'm not too worried about that. How does it look here? Okay, these are a bit off. So what I would do is you find where it doubles up. We take the first kick, because the first kick is generally the best one, because it's riding completely off the zero. Copy paste that. We're going to go over here, put that there. We're going to grab the halfway mark, and then we're going to put that back down to there. Duplicate this back over. Make sure that goes back as well. And now we have our brown loop. Consolidate that. Cool. So we do that, and we pretty much do that with every one. That's all the brown ones in it. This is going to take some time. So let's do that again. Grab that over here. And then clear this section out, because obviously there's no kick playing here. But then there's what I can do is to make this a bit easier, I'll just put this kick at the bottom. And then we are basically moving this here and letting that go there. That sounds about right. Or is there... You know what, it'd be easy, just do this for here, I think. Anyway, I'll do this another time, because this is going to take too much time in the episode. So what I'll do is turn that off for now. And I'm pretty happy with the kick as it is, but that's something I would normally do, go through the track, print out the kick, keeps it the same every time. It's just not so important if you've already printed out your reverb, because it's sometimes the reverb thing that can change depending if you've got I'll bring up a reverb and show you. There's certain things on your reverb that are modulated, like spin, chorus. Yeah, I think it's those two, and possibly there's some other things going on, but if you just turn them off and put it to stereo, your reverb should hit the same time every time. But if you use a different reverb, it may always have modulation in, so it's just good to print that reverb off and then use the same reverb every time. Fuck it, it looks like a carnival with all this colouring. Anyway, percussion. So what we're going to do with the percussion, because they basically because the percussion just add up to be quite like, they eat a lot of headroom out in the mastering stage, because look at them. Look how vibrant and transient they are. They're just full of transient, so it like goes into the limiter quite hard, you know. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through each individual percussion, apply a clipper to it until we can tell the clipper's there, and then we're going to back the clipper off a tiny bit, you know. You will lose some transient power in this, definitely, but the point is that we add that back in at a later date. So, right, start this process off. Another way you can combat this is by saturating your, you can saturate your percussion. Sorry, I've just had food. You can saturate your percussion, and then you end up getting a similar thing, but you introduce low end, and that's something we're going to look at in a minute anyway. So, right, first things first. So you can see there's a tiny amount less transient on there, like the feel of it when it's on. But that's fine by me. I'm gonna saturate it now to make it even louder. And then we're gonna bring it down by 3 dB. And it's definitely less transient. You can hear the transient is going out of there, but whatever. It's, you know, I will add that back in at a later date, as I said earlier. And it's the same on this one now. Start again. So you can hear on this one, it's much sooner that you're able to tell that it's like making destructive interference into the sound. You can hear there's a lot of low end introduced to it. It's just not nice. So just because of the way the sample is, it just doesn't sound as good. So you can see it at the bottom there. If I turn it off, you'll see that bottom go. So that one we can't saturate as far. So we'll go back. Clip as far, sorry. You know, I can hear it instantaneously, so we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is try and soft clip this to see if we can get it louder without causing the same issue again. I just can't get much out of that, to be honest. That is what that is. So move on to the next one. Fuck it, that's loud. Jesus. This is more like it. You can see how much transient that is. That is a load, you know? Talking about the RMS of that signal on the right hand side, you can see it's pretty much 24, maybe 25, but the peak is going all the way up to -3. yeah, I'm happy taking that much off. I can hear there's a little bit more low end introduced, and you know, I could cut that off like that, but we'll talk about why you shouldn't do that later when we come to the end of this. You know, and sometimes adding this extra distortion sounds good. Like there, it added a little bit more low end, but I kind of like the sound of that a bit more. It sounded a bit more punchy. So great, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get something that sounds a bit more punchy, sounds a bit more good. May cut through the mix a little bit more, so we'll just go with that. Right, we want to go everything individual tracks before we go to a bus, because saturating on a bus does do something different. That shouldn't be there. That should be on the other side of that. Actually, we can do that, but we'll have to take this off. As you see, because this is a distorted sound, you could really push this without it making much of a difference, you know? Cool. Cool. So remember, yeah, if you, it's like a trade-off, innit? If by trying to get as much headroom out of this as possible, I'm going to be sacrificing transient data or the feel of transient. That's just something that's going to happen. So some of you may be like, oh, I like the transient sound a bit more. That's fine. That may work in your track and your sound. And there may be other people that think, no, shave that all the way off, and they'll get tracks that are like -3 LUFS and stuff like that. But this is kind of like what I think is reasonable with this, so we're just going to keep going. Oh, this is left. So this is another thing. So if you can see, there's a bit, because I've automated the velocity of these little hits, you get this little like dance that's going, but get rid of that now. See, it is adding in like low to that. If you just chuck this on the other side, you'll be able to see it. See, it's adding in a little like click, but we'll get rid of that later. But we've clipped that, but you can still tell it's got like a velocity difference to it. You'd think if you clip it, it should sound all the same, shouldn't it? Like, because obviously the head of this will sound like, if we look at this now, that's very flat, isn't it? You think it'd be like noticeably, you wouldn't be able to tell, you know, but it's just that one at the bottom we don't really want to touch. But doing this process doesn't actually get rid of all of the data that you're kind of like, that's in the music, you know? Why is that? Fire. Oh, it's been silenced for some reason, I don't know why, but anyway. Perfect example when this should be used. And I think finally, is that the last one? Yeah. Loud. So I like to do about 25%. Seems to be quite a nice area to be in. It's transparent most of the times, and it's just easy. Minus 25. If you're on the around that level, is minus 3 here, and then 50 is minus 6, and then etc. Right. So basically, because we've done all that, if we were to go here now and then put this standard clip in, on the hat group, which is everything in here. For some reason, basically, while it won't look flat now, it is way flatter than what it would have been if we hadn't done this. Now, what we're going to do now is do it again. But first, I'm going to go to Pro Q3. I'll have to... So you go into Pro Q3 and then you select linear phase. Now, the reason why you do this is that you don't want to edit the phase, because basically what that clipper has done is reintroduce low-end material into the sound chain. You know what I mean? It's reintroduced low-end material into the noise because it's been squaring off. The clipper just cuts your head off and it basically makes any sound more square. So we want to get rid of that low end because we don't want to hear it. So the way we do this now is by using a linear phase EQ rather than a normal phase EQ, because this linear phase EQ will keep the phase of the signal exactly the same. If you use a minimal phase or zero latency, it will use phase to manipulate the sound to get it to sound better, you know? But what that does is reintroduces the peaks that you would see in standard clip again, thus negated exactly what we've just done that for, you know? And you basically get your limiter working overtime trying to get rid of those peaks again. So we just cut these lows again. This is not free, by the way. It comes at the cost of higher CPU, and it does a bit of pre-ringing, which isn't good on transient material. And we're doing this on transient material. But the thing is, I'm cutting the lows. The lows aren't the transient part of this song we care about. Apart from the hats, maybe, because this clap, is quite low. But it's fine. On this track, it's fine, you know? It's quite unnoticeable a lot of the time, but, you know. So What's next? There is a sound I hear in one of these samples that I'm not liking. There's like a weird noise going on. There, it's in this. So let's try and do this properly. Yeah, I think it's from the reverb and the size. So what we're going to do, we're just going to cut out what that is. And going to cut out the lows. Go back to here. So now, as you see, I've used an EQ here. We're going to get rid of that now. And we're also going to get rid of this one. And you can see there's a bit more low-end information, probably because we've basically clipped a lot of things. I'm surprised that's come through, actually, because it should have... Sorry, wrong way around. That should be like that. There we go. As you can see, it's gone now, you know. But let's say if I add this back in, you'll see it. Oh no, you would see it back in the clipper, right? So we're going to just listen to every sound now and see if there's any more frequencies we want to cut out. So there's a little whistling noise in this I can hear. Now, you can sometimes see them. So, like, I could see there's something poking out around this area, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you can't see them, but also sometimes the ones you see are not the noise that's annoying you. So we're just going to... Next sound. There's nothing wrong with that. That just sounds like white noise, to be honest. Nope, that's good. That I'm just like searching for a noise that's annoying and then just scooping it out, and once it's scooped it's not going to be present in the material, you know. Additionally, the more you scoop, the more headroom you get in, again, because you're taking out information, you know. So there's a little ringing noise in that somewhere. I can hear it. So if you think, it's literally on the right, it's on the right hand side of that little, there's like, it does this, there's like two highs, there's like two highs and there's a low, but it's on the right hand side of that one on the left. But there's also another one, I can hear it. You know, you don't have to be perfect with this. It's, you know, you're just trying to clean it up as best as you can reasonably do it. You know, it's not really going to matter. It's not going to change the world unless you've got something really egregious, you know? So anyway, come back to this now. And I can still hear it, man. I can definitely hear that one. So back into percussion. We're going to remove this. So the idea of this glue compressor is I put a long attack in, which I think is in milliseconds. Should be able to check now. Yeah, milliseconds. So a long attack will basically allow... Okay, compressors are complicated to understand. A lot of people don't really get it, but basically think of it like this. If I set the compressor up, what the attack does is allow that information to go through before it reacts. Think of it as like a delay to how quick it is. So if I set it to that, as soon as something passes through 0.01 milliseconds, it's going to go, fuck off, mate. You're not coming through here, mate. That's fast, mate. So you're basically crushing, any like, this is percussive material. You're basically going to take any transients we've got left over from all this clipping and you're just going to even smash them further. So that's not what we want. So what we want to do is provide like light gain reduction on the whole mix of these percussive elements, but let enough through so you get a little spike back, you know? So basically that's why I set it to 10, which is 10 milliseconds. 30 sounds good as well, to be honest. I usually set 30 on Molotok, which is one of my plugins that I use to do all this. But we'll have a listen. What sounds best wins, you know? I think 10 sounds tighter, possibly. 30 does let a little bit more transient through. I wonder if we can see it in here. Yeah, I'm going to stick with 10. 10 sounds tighter. 30 sounds louder because it's letting a lot more of that clap through. And you want like a quick release, really. Because you want to let that transient through, but compress the rest of the signal. And basically what the release is doing is once the signal has dropped below the point at which the compressor would activate, the release then waits and then it lets go, you know? So a really long release would be like slowly letting go once it's like past the moment. But a quick release would be like, no, we got to get back into the fucking doing this again, you know? Now, limiters, attack, and releases are a bit different. In some plugins, it's really like a thing by thing basis. So, like, I'm not going to go into that because I don't even know, you know, within the plugins I use, I just know you got to just fiddle about until it sounds good type of thing, rather than being like, I know what I'm going to set. Right, ratio is basically if it goes over that signal, that's how much I'm going to press down on it, you know? So a ratio of 4:1 is every dB that goes over, 4 dB of gain reduction. You know, it's not a, it's a ratio, correct? Yeah, it is a ratio. So if it goes 2 dB over, yeah, you know, maths. Soft clip is just going to saturate it a little bit just to get it a bit more, I guess, compressed. And then your makeup gain is just, you know, your way to increase the volume once again. We don't need this on the end of that. Do we need that? No. So we don't need this EQ. Because sometimes I do that to... what do I do it for? To automate the... I'll have this on my percussion bus so I can automate it going like, you know... But we haven't done that in this track, so it doesn't need to be on. It can go off. And also having that there would affect some of the percussive transient information over there, you know? So we keep that off. That's a 30,000 hertz. I'm not too worried about that. What is that? I don't know why we need that. We don't need that. So get rid of that. Oh, well, let's actually have a look because... Perfect. Right, so we've done the percussion. Easy. Moving on. Got to do everything the same with the synths now. So let's just go with this synth. Oh, because obviously we've been mixing this track as we've been going along as well. So the mix levels are pretty much where they need to be. But obviously some people mix, when they go to a Mixdown, they reset everything to 0 and go through that process. But that process is basically checking their track against a reference and then being like, the hats are louder, move it up, and just doing it that way. We'll get to kind of like a bit more of that towards the end once this is done, because this is going to make certain things louder and like, you know, stuff. So, all right. So I'm going to go through that. I've explained a bit now, so I'm just going to go through these ones a bit quicker, so that we can get a move on, really. Gotta be careful with this, it's so loud. Also, always do your, unless you want to automate your clipping and stuff like that, always do it in the louder sections, because that's kind of going to be where your worst scenario is, where you're going to get audible distortion. Not always, because sometimes you'll have like as your synth gets more cut out, as in when your synth is closer, it may have more low end, and then, you know, you can hear that a bit more then sometimes. So it's good to check, you know, and we'll have a re-listen to once you're done, you know. But so I've got a decapitator on this. This is going to be functionally doing quite similar things to the clipper, but with more flavor, you know. So if I check the clipper, it should be quite flat. Take decapitator off. Can you see it's a lot more, like, you know, bouncing? So pretty much nearly there with that. And you can see just adding in these two EQs here has made the the audio a bit more like transient-y. So back to this. And really, we don't need the low end filter on there. So I've lost a little high-end information off that. I can hear there's a little less bright, but we've got a separate layer exactly for that. So I don't care. It's fine. So yeah, important to add that compressor beforehand, because you know you may be able to get away with distorting it a bit less, but obviously by doing this we're kind of nullifying some of the effects that this sidechain compressor is having, because we are again compressing the signal by distorting it. It's a lot of like back and forth, you know. Some people like to export their entire project before doing this mix down and then use the stems. I don't, because I like to go back and forth between the creative process, especially with labels involved. They kind of like to make changes sometimes. So this is the way I do it, you know. It does take a while though. Certain things I don't, certain things I won't saturate. This is in the breakdown. I'm not concerned with headroom in the breakdown. There's no kick, so don't need to bother with this. And it's not like that needs distorting anyway, you know? Unless you got, you know, if you got kicks in the breakdown and stuff like that and you're really worrying about the headroom, then maybe a bit more, but... And do you know what? Because this is here, this is more mixing now, we can cut the highs on this a little bit just to get rid of that. It won't make a difference really when it's all banging. Right, I didn't add a thing. So see, that one is automated. We have, I need to make my switch over to FabFilter Pro Q to get rid of this issue, but I keep forgetting to. So what we're going to do, we're going to use a low pass. Going to do the same thing again. Linear phase. Where does this set? This is set to 111. I honestly think you could set it higher than that if we just check where this is usually sat. Gonna turn it down a little bit. And it goes up there. So in reality, like I can probably turn that off, and we're just going to have it in for this section here, just to save us remapping that.
Our first true piece.
Fucking hell, what something's wrong there. That's better. So keep going through this process. I want that purely for its transient hit. I'm not going to distort that. And, well, maybe, should we? No, I'm going to leave it there like that, to be fair. Because at the time of this is going on, there's only 3 things going. There's no hats or anything. When the hats come in, we're now going to automate this a bit lower so it doesn't take up so much headroom here. Always a good trick as well is to, once, you know, turn things on and off. If you can't hear it, get rid of it. It doesn't need to be there, you know. And if you can just about hear it and you're like, oh, get rid of it. It doesn't need to be there. If you can hear it and it's an element you can feel and it's given emotion in the track, keep it. But in reality, I don't think I'm going to be able to hear that, so there's no need for it to be there, and I'm going to save a dB, maybe 0.5 of dB here. Getting a really loud master and a really loud mix is made from like 500, 0.5, 0.2 dB saves that you're going to get. Like even if you shave off like a little bit by distorting something a little bit more, you're going to get a louder master. So it's loud again. Sorry. Doesn't need to be there. Amazing. Right. So that's that done. 2 down. Right, with vocals, you got to be careful. I don't clip my vocals generally. 2 seconds, just check. Yeah, with vocals, kind of be careful because over distorting them will make them a bit more difficult to ascertain like what they're saying. So I'm going to use Decapitator, which I think I already have. No, but these are already a bit distorted. Yeah, I have used Decapitator, but we're going to try that a little bit more. Try and get a little bit more out of it. I'm just going to do this on the bus, though, because they're individual clips. A lot of them aren't playing together, apart from this section. But it should be fine.
Our first true piece of technology. Fire.
So we're just going to loop this section.
Our first true piece of technology. Fire. Our first true piece of technology. Fire. Our first true piece of technology. Our first true piece of technology. Fire. 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 Our first.
So we're looking at minus 12 RMS, kind of.
Our first true piece of technology.
If I turn this on.
Our first true piece of technology.
Going to minus 9, so we want to reduce that a bit.
Our first true piece of technology. Fire. Our first true piece of technology. Fire. Our first true piece of technology. Fire. Our first true piece of technology.
But if you notice, we are losing a bit of the high-end, like, eligibility out of his voice.
Our first true piece of technology. Our first true piece of technology.
And I prefer it without. I'm going to just make it brighter maybe a little bit, see if that works.
Our first true piece of technology. Fire. Our first true piece of technology. Fire. Our first true piece.
Wait, what? Have I got 2 decapitators in a row? Oh, fuck's sake, sorry. Is this set up ready? Yeah, thank God. Right, we'll cut that out. Bloody hell. Make mistakes here. Right, we'll add this back in here. I'm surprised that was making so much difference. Right, so let's go again.
Our first true piece of technology. Fire. 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 Our first true piece of technology.
So if you notice, we're getting a much better smushiness, transient. It's a lot more compressed, but we are losing a bit of that like technology, like the little picks and pops in his voice. So
our first true piece of technology. Our first true piece of technology.
So I'm going to just reduce it a little bit.
Our first true piece of technology. Our first true piece of technology.
There we go. I can just hear that technology come through, and that'll be satisfying to hear. So once again, we've shaved off a little bit. I'm going to add in our Pro Q3 on linear phase mode. Going to grab that, do it again.
Our first true piece of technology. Fire. Our first true piece of technology. Fire. Our first true piece of technology.
Right, and because that's applied to the bus, that'll get all these things in. This fire loop. One sec, I'm just going to double check. This is the... hasn't gone up in volume.
Our first true piece of technology. Fire. Our first true piece of technology. 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 Our first true piece of technology.
Yeah, it's close enough. Close enough, right.
Fire. True piece of technology. Fire. Our first true piece of technology.
Right, once again, these are in all the breakdown, so we don't need to do anything with that. Right then, this synth, next up. All right, deleting unused. Is that unused? Yeah. I wish there should be a thing in Ableton, like right-click, delete unused tracks. It'd be amazing. Right. I'm going to add decapitator to this. You know, you can use any like clipping synth or something like that, but I'm just going to use decapitator, just give it a bit more sound, color it a bit more, rather than like using it for trying to keep it transparent. So let's go. Just a little boost there, that's all. It's all you need sometimes, you know. You're just trying to, like I said, grab little bits of headroom while you can, you know. And look, you can see what that decapitator has done, you know, and I guess and the Pro Q if we get rid of that. Sounding great. Right, we're in the breakdown stage again, so we can skip these. Apart from this, I'm going to make this a little bit distorted just to get a bit more... Wow, do I want to do that though? Cool. Right. That is all the synths done. And then we're going to go back up to the synth main layer. As you notice, we've got one of these on. Oh no. So once again, Pro Q, we do the same thing. Luckily, because with this, you know, we're not relying on transient information down there, so. And in the breakdown, I always have this off just because it's nice to have that low end rumble sometimes in the breakdown, you know, just a bit of, just to really feel it, you know. So we're also going to have this off in the breakdown.
Our first true piece of technology.
So I'm just going to monitor this in the breakdown just in case we do need to bring it back in.
True piece of technology. Fire. Our first true piece of technology. Fire.
No, we're not going to need to bring that back in. So this was activated on 46 hertz. It's a bit high, that, mate. A bit low, sorry. So I'm going to deactivate. So you tend not to want to distort things. If you want to keep things transparent, don't distort things in buses, because a lot of the frequencies will add together in a way that is different than if you were to distort them individually. Though if you want a more colored sound, that can be perfectly fine, because that's what you're trying to do, you know? So you could apply a little bit more distortion to this level if you really wanted to get a bit more of a driven sound. And one of the issues here is inconsistencies through the rest of your sound. So because you may want to listen to it there and it may sound good there, but another synth may pop in later and then make it sound awful. So you really want to kind of take the moment that is truly the loudest, test that, and then see if there's another issue somewhere else. So we know that this synth, that is probably it, you know. Oh, that's right. We forgot to do this on the end here. Now these, so we're done with the synths now. Pretty much you can go back and forth, you know, doing this. You can spend as long as you want. And I normally don't do this in my headphones. I normally do it on my monitors. So bear with me if things sound a bit off on your side of things. I will be checking these out of camera, you know, to try and keep things going. Just checking if we've got enough memory on this. Yeah, it's all going fine. Right, so with that, edit that out. When was that? 109. Right, so carrying on. I tend to use much more aggressive distortion with these. I think you can get away with it more because it's in the background if things sound a bit too like smushed, but so we're just going to go with that then, you know. So, and because a lot of these noises aren't sitting on top of each other, there's a lot of space between them. You can use bus distortion a bit more liberally, because it's not about really combining the sounds together now. You're kind of you're more how can I put this space, so the distortion frequencies aren't really going to connect as much, you know. So just go listen to it and then see what happens. Let's see from here. going mad here. Just keep them coming.
Piece of technology. Piece of technology. Piece of technology. Piece of technology.
That I think is, yeah, that's fine. That's the lowest out of all of these. Right, so we're gonna now take away the lows again on these. Yeah, I'm doing this part a bit quicker because I want to get the video done quickly, but you know, you may spend as long as you want with this. Right, C178. So just going to redo that here. And you can, let's say, add another one of these, but we're going to turn soft clip off and just keep it as a actual clipper to see if anything comes through. Right, this really doesn't need to be clipped, I don't think. That's so far in the background, you're not really gonna get much from that. Plus, yeah, so right. The snares. Another standard clip, let's go. Go to the end of your snare roll because that's where it's longest. Because you don't want to over. That can use some persuasion.
Our first true piece. Our first true piece. Our first true piece.
It's so quiet. Is that ever alive? Let's just add a EQ8 there to have a look, see what's going on. Yeah, I'm not too concerned about that, apart from on this one. Leave it there then. It's not really adding anything.
Our first true piece of technology.
As you can see, having a simpler project would make it a lot easier. I don't need them now. We have these impact. What is that? I'm going to use that. That needs to be somewhere else, doesn't it? It sounds so good. Maybe not. Come back to that. This is a perfect example of what needs to be chucked on this. And there's also a resonant frequency in that we can get rid of. So let's get rid of that. That one. That's better, right? Oh, see, because you may not get away with this. You're not. So if you listen to that really carefully, try and maybe boost your volume up. You'll hear crackling on the outside of your headphones or like outside of the mix. It's this weird thing you get from distortion sometimes. On some instruments it sounds good, some it sounds fine. That's not something we're going to be able to do on there without hearing that outside of the mix zone. So it won't sound natural and it will sound like unpurposeful distortion, which is not what we're aiming for. So we're just going to leave that for now. Right, so what are these? These are breakdown stuff, don't need to. This thing is also just breakdown stuff, and that is that. Right then, we have our Mixdown prepared, right? So this is everything you would do to like prep it. And then what we do is you find, just quickly in the next couple of minutes, you find your golden loop, right? And then what we're going to do, I'm going to loop this area. And we add in this little VST called Tonal Balance Control. It's a great visual aid. It's not perfect, definitely not. A good visual aid of spectral balances of certain songs. So you can add like techno. I've added in my Redux, which is one of my tracks on Craftech, and another techno one, which I think this one is another song on Craftech. But most recently I've used Ma Reedy's Unexpected, which is on Drumcode, which has a bit of a softer low end, and that is the key to having a lower track. A louder track is a lower volume, low end. It's not by much, so you can see like Redux is a little bit higher, but that's it. But Vital, I love this tool, but we can see now where our track balances up. So it's pretty much saying your high end's a little bit too high. If we brought our high end down, I would tend to do this from your volume faders first, rather than your EQ in the master like bus. That's like not the best way to do it, you know, because you can do it, but it's better to individually find out what little sample needs to be turned down, and then save a bit of headroom like that, rather than like blanket everything down. But we'll just do it for now. You get like 4,000 here. What you can do is press Alt here, and you'll also be able to hear. So let's go. So it's likely my ride, and I have a penchant for making my rides a little bit too loud, so. What we'll do, we'll put this to 5 seconds to make it a bit quicker reacting. Remember, I'm never going to make a song sound like Mari's Unexpected. It's not the same song, you know? So like, it's just a guideline, you know? So I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, my high end may be a tiny bit too loud in certain areas, so we can fix that. But it's more about getting like the certain areas in tune, you know? So basically, I think our low end needs to be slightly louder, but you could do that by also making your highs and mids a bit lower, you know? So we'll do this again. happy with that. I'm happy with that Mixdown. Pretty much, it's pretty much kind of where it needs to be. Anyway, that is kind of like the prep for the actual Mixdown, and then the next sesh, I guess you just be comparing it to these, and then just going individually through your things and being like, okay, I can save a little bit of like, that's a tiny bit too loud or a tiny bit too short. So what you would do is you would listen to your track a couple of times, make some notes, pen and paper on your phone or wherever, and then be like, right, I need to turn that down, and then blah, blah, blah. And then prep your song for mastering, which I think pretty much will be it. So I'll probably have a quick episode next time on the final Mixdown, just doing a little bit more things, using some more like intelligent plugins, like spectral plugins, like Gullfoss or Soothe, and then figuring out if we can save a tiny bit more headroom again, and then get it ready for the mastering stage. So anyway, bit of a longer one today. I hope you've enjoyed. A bit more informative than the usual sessions, I hope. And yeah, if you have any thoughts, just let me know, and see you next time.